If you have a slow, sluggish, and even cheap kick drum pedal, and you'd like to get more speed and fluidity out of it, then today's lesson is for you. Make these 3 big adjustments we're breaking down today, and your pedal will feel more high-end, operate more quickly, and you'll be able to play faster as a result. You'll also learn how to quickly test your pedal's speed so you can find out where you stand on this, which is pretty interesting. As a matter of fact, recently a student of mine was dealing with a sluggish pedal, and we made one of these quick adjustments while on a Zoom call, and he immediately felt a huge difference. So let's get you playing faster and sounding more professional so that you can have fun playing the songs you want to play. You can do this. Hey, welcome to The Non-Glamorous Drummer. I'm so glad you're hanging out today. I help self-taught beginner drummers know what to practice so that they can nail songs and sound awesome with a band. I want you to become the drummer other people want to jam with and want to have in their band. And hey, in order to do that, you have to know what to practice, right? And I want to help you with that as much as possible, because when you know what to practice, you can take little steps every day that lead to massive results months and especially years from now. So I have a free gift for you in the description, especially if you are a beginner drummer. This is my Know What to Practice for the Beginner Drummer e-guide. It is a simple core daily practice routine that you can work through in just 30 minutes a day if that's all you've got. And it's 3 parts. What's so cool here is that if you do each of these things every day for 30 minutes, this is your core practice routine that hits all the bases so that you can know that you're growing consistently. No overwhelm, no doubting, no wondering if you're growing, no scatterbrain looking for things to practice. Just stick with this and it will serve you well and you'll grow like crazy. Those 3 things are the flow exercise, which is pretty cool, the 2-fold coordination growth method, and the learn songs by ear daily method. Do those 3 things, 30 minutes a day, you'll grow like crazy. So go grab that totally free e-guide. It's a no-brainer. It's in the description for you. All right, let's get on with today's lesson. So here's the deal. If you adjust the 3 big speed factors of your pedal, then your pedal will feel more high-end, operate more quickly, and you'll be able to play faster as a result. So this is pretty interesting. What was happening that day with this student, I was watching him play, and he was doing a great job of playing. Like, he was sounding good, he was playing in time, his foot was in a good position on the pedal, everything looked great. But I was watching his pedal, and I thought, you know what? It looks kind of slow. It looks a little bit heavy and cumbersome. I wonder if he could play this thing he's playing more naturally with less effort if we made some adjustments. So I had him do what I'm gonna have you do here in a second. So I call this the bass drum pedal speed test, for lack of a fancier, more unique title. This is your bass drum pedal speed test. We want to find out how fast is your bass drum pedal, regardless of how fast your foot is. Because obviously, if you develop a fast foot because you've practiced a bunch, then you can make a slow pedal move pretty quick, right? But let's say you're a total beginner, you don't have a fast foot yet, then you're going to get a different reaction from the pedal. So removing your foot, removing yourself from the equation, this is how we know how fast the pedal is. So reach down here and put a finger on the beater, pull it back as far as it'll go till it's either stopping or it's hitting the foot plate, and then just slip that finger off. And watch the beater bob and pay attention to how fast it's going. So what you could do here is basically when you do this, okay, bum 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 dun 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 dun. Get that tempo, get that beat in your head. What I found is that with this pedal in particular, it's basically bobbing at about 1/8 notes at 105. So if I set my metronome to 105 beats a minute, then it's going gung, 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 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3, 1/8 notes at 105. Yours is probably going to be a little bit different. And if you feel like your pedal is slow, it's probably going a lot slower than that. So do this with your pedal. You've got it attached to your kick drum. You reach down, slip your finger off, pay attention to how fast it's moving. Now, here's what's interesting. So my pedal's moving at that rate. I have this other pedal right here. This is my old Gibraltar Intruder that I bought. I think I bought this thing when I was in high school, and it was actually kind of already used because it was the display pedal at the music store, and so they gave me a deal on it. And so anyways, this pedal, it was a good pedal. It served me well for a long time. But right now, the way I have it adjusted, look at how slow it bobs. So I'll put it here and better view the cameras here. We do the same test with this one, and we let it go. It's significantly slower, and it's actually with a lighter beater. This is a lighter weight beater, but it's still going slower. We pay attention to that tempo. Bum, 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 dum, 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 bum, dum, bum. That's around like 80 beats a minute maybe, without clocking it to get an exact number. We're kind of around 80. That's significantly slower than this one was. So I know that if I take this pedal and I hook it up to my kick drum, sure, I'll be able to play fine. but it's gonna feel a little bit slower. It's gonna feel a little more sluggish. It's gonna be harder to get that quick fluidity and power out of it. And maybe this is what you're noticing with yours. This is what my student's pedal looked like that day. I had him do this, and his pedal looked exactly like this. It was moving about this slow. And I thought, well, I mean, it's okay, it's all right, but what if we can make it faster? And so that's what we want to do today. We've got 3 steps to make your slow pedal faster. And here's the thing that I had my student do on that Zoom call, and it instantly gave him a huge result. He made this one little adjustment and he was like, whoa, this feels so much better. It's kind of obvious once you do it, but maybe you haven't thought about this, especially if you're new to the drums. When I was new to the drums, I didn't think about any of this stuff. I didn't even realize there were ways to adjust my pedal. And so if you're brand new, this is very much for you. It is okay you don't know what you don't know. It's okay if you don't know what you don't know. Here's what I want you to do. Shorten the beater. If your pedal's really slow, shorten the beater by about 1/2 inch. So 1/2 inch is not much, maybe a centimeter. Those of you using metric, maybe like a centimeter. Again, here's how fast it's going now. Bump, 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 bump. We're gonna shorten it by 1/2 inch. And do it again. Boom, 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 boom. That's a pretty big difference. Maybe like 5, 8 beats per minute faster. If we were to go a whole inch and shorten it even just a little bit more, and do it again, pull it back and let it go. Boom, 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 boom. Whoa, like a pretty big difference at that point. We're getting closer to where that one was. Now, little thing here to mention, when you have your pedal off of your kick drum, it's gonna bob slower because the whole thing kind of rocks back and forth, right? But if you have it clipped onto your kick drum, the pedal is anchored, so that means all the energy is staying up here in the beater, and the beater is gonna bob faster. And it's gonna bob for longer. It's gonna slow down though if you're holding it in your hand or you've got it sitting here on a wobbly snare stand like I do. So that's another reason why this one's going a little bit slower. But you get the idea. It's easier to see and show you what's going on up here, so that's why I pulled this one out. So I had my student make that adjustment. He shortened it just like 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch or so, and he was like, wow, this feels so much better. So that is the first thing you can do to any pedal to make it feel quicker. We'll talk a little bit more about this because with anytime you make an adjustment to your pedal, there's always a compromise that's happening. If you gain one thing, you're pretty much always gonna lose something else. So it all depends on which currency, so to speak, is most important to you with your pedal, which we'll talk about a little more as we go. Here's the second thing you can do though. Decrease the weight. So it's possible, if your pedal feels really slow, it's possible that you just have a heavy beater on there. Some beaters weigh more than others. This beater is actually a light beater, like I mentioned a minute ago. If I were to take this beater, put it down here on my DW9000, adjust it to the same length as this, then it would feel really light. And I used to use this beater all the time, and it felt super light and super quick, and I felt like I could just play lightning fast. And it was really good for playing gigs in small rooms where I was playing more softly, especially if I was playing more intricate, fast stuff and playing softly. It was great for that. But kind of the flip side here that I was hinting at, if you do a lighter weight beater, then volume becomes a little more difficult. And volume is something we need on bass drum. When we're playing the kick drum and we're playing rock grooves, we need some volume out of our right foot. We've got to play strongly down there, otherwise our groove doesn't have much foundation. So you have to be careful about that, and you end up potentially working harder to play loudly if you have too light or short of a beater. And so that's where it kind of becomes this whole game of compromise and figuring out, okay, what is most important to me right now with what I'm playing? Because if you want more volume, you need more throw, so to speak, out of your beater. It's just like if you're holding a drumstick. If you want to play really fast, grip your stick further up, like right here. Because if you're gripping right here, especially if it's a lighter stick. So again, same concept. If I switch to a lighter stick, I've got one somewhere down here. Yeah, one of these maple lightweight sticks. Whoa, this is super light. It feels great for the lightning fast jazz stuff. But if I take this same lightweight stick and I'm gripping it way up here and I start hitting my drums and trying to play rim shots, it's no good. It doesn't sound good at all. The same thing applies to a bass drum beater. If you're wanting to play loudly and more heavily, then having the longer beater could be more beneficial. But if your primary highly valued currency here is speed and quickness, then having the shorter, lighter beater is potentially going to help you more. So I'm throwing both sides of this at you because I want to challenge you to think about why you're making the adjustments you're making. Because if you saw this video, how to make a slow pedal faster, and your primary concern is, okay, I need to make my slow pedal faster, I want you asking yourself, okay, why am I wanting to make the pedal faster? What's the issue here? Is it completely the pedal's fault, or do I need to work on my technique? Do I need to have some patience here with building endurance and stamina and strength for my right foot? Because that's very much a side to the equation here. But hey, there's one more thing, really kind of two more things. Our third step here, which is sort of in two parts, is increase the spring tension. So I don't know how familiar you are with Jojo Mayer. I think it was Jojo Mayer. Don't quote me on this. Somebody can tell me in the comments if I'm wrong. I think it was Jojo Mayer who talked about one time practicing with no spring. Like he would take the spring off of his pedal. If it wasn't Jojo Mayer, it was another one of those crazy, fast technical guys. And he would take the spring off. If you take the spring off your pedal, where does that leave you? I mean, think about it. What does the spring do for you? The spring creates rebound where there's almost no rebound because the kick drum's tuned really low, and so there's not really much rebound if you get rid of the spring that's creating that artificial rebound for you. And so what he would do is take the spring off so that the beater just flops against the head, kind of the equivalent. Again, there's always a parallel here. When we're making kick drum pedal adjustments, there's always a parallel between that and what we're doing up here. It would be the equivalent of practicing on a leg or on a pillow, where suddenly now, oh, there's no rebound. Oh, these doubles are a lot harder. And so you have to start using your fingers more and be more strategic in how you play them. And so down here, our spring essentially does that for us, but without it, we're having to think about, okay, what can our foot do to play more quickly? And so your pedal can become a workout pedal for you by removing the spring. So think about the flip side of that. If you're wanting your pedal to be faster, then try increasing the spring tension. Because imagine the spring is very loose. Let's imagine that this spring is super loose and that this pedal is moving very slowly, but let's also imagine that there's no outside forces acting upon this pedal. In other words, there's no friction. Like imagine it's perfectly oiled up. This thing is perfectly locked to a piece of concrete so that the pedal doesn't rock at all. It's just the beater that's moving. There's no outside force. The only thing that can slow it down then, again, we're imagining this perfect environment. The only thing that's going to slow it down is the tension of the spring, because the spring is gradually pulling it back into this position right here. So the tighter the spring is, the more quickly the pedal gets pulled back into this position. If the spring was very tight, then it would look like this. And it would quickly move back into place. But if the spring is very loose, it's going to potentially move more. It's going to be this wider range, but it's going to be slower, and it's going to go for a long time, and then it's going to eventually come to rest right here. Does that make sense? So if you feel like your pedal is too slow and sluggish and you're having to put too much work into it and it's giving your foot a workout, and you've tried shortening your beater, you've tried a lighter weight beater, then maybe you need to try adjusting the spring tension. But again, there's always a catch. There's always kind of the flip side. Okay, what's most important to you? If you tighten your spring tension a bunch, that will potentially also give your foot a workout. It's almost like this full circle spectrum where if we go looser and looser, it gets more difficult because you don't get response. If we go tighter and tighter, your foot's having to potentially work harder to play loudly because the beater's being pulled back into place right here. You've got so much rebound working, you might even be having to press harder to get the beater to really throw into the head. So by then you're almost down here in the same spot. So it's all about balance here. And it's all about adjusting your spring tension based on the length of your beater and the weight of your beater. So if you're going long and heavy, that's where you're going to want the tighter spring tension because it's naturally going to move slower. The tighter spring will help bring it back into place. But if you're going shorter and lighter, you might want less spring tension because it's going to come back into place more quickly anyways because it's lighter and shorter. Does that make sense? I know these are kind of those things where you got to think about them for a second, but then when you think about them, it's like, oh, well, that's kind of obvious. And so you're adjusting your spring tension according to what you're doing with length and weight up here. And that's why I list this as number 3. But I told you it's kind of 2 parts. Spring tension is like the part 1 here for our third step. There's also a part 2, and this is something really important that I almost left out of this, that I started thinking, you know what? This goes hand in hand with spring tension. This is definitely worth a mention, and it's beater angle. So if you look at either of my pedals, if we go to the floor cam down here and we look at this one, you can see how this beater is pretty much exactly at 45 degrees. If you look at this one up here on the snare, you can see it's pretty much exactly 45, give or take a few degrees, but it's pretty close. That's a really good sweet spot. If you look down at your pedal and you notice that when you take your foot off, it's somewhere like this. I've got mine down here on the kick drum in that same position. If the beater is resting too close to the head, then you're going to be missing so much potential for speed and volume and power. But the steeper the angle is, the more potential you actually have for the speed, volume, and power. But you can see what's coming here if you've been paying attention. It comes at a cost. What's the cost? Well, when you're trying to play quietly, if you've got your angle adjusted to right here, where it's way far back, but you're trying to play quietly, what's going to happen is that the beater's not going to quite reach the head. You'll be trying to play softly and it'll come up to here and not quite reach the head, unless you were to loosen your springs a bunch. So there again, we kind of have that relationship. There's so many things you can play with here. But if you're wanting to play softly and you're playing a more quiet, chill gig and your default volume is just more quiet and you want to have a good feeling response, what you don't want is for the angle to be adjusted back here and therefore the beater is slowing down before it gets to the head. That'll be frustrating and it will feel weird to you. But if you're trying to play fast and you're trying to play loud and you have it adjusted back here, it's going to feel great because you now have this much more throw. It's just like if you're playing up here and you're trying to play loudly and quickly with your sticks, you want to have more throw. You want to have more of that stick to work with, and it's going to help you out. So the same is true down here. So what I actually started doing years ago when I was going back and forth between, I might take my pedal to this big loud gig and I might take my pedal to this small room gig, and I was doing a lot of gigs during the week. I would actually make this quick adjustment. I would just change my angle to right here. I would go like one more notch to get it a little past 45 degrees. That would be my sweet spot for playing loudly, and it felt awesome. And I could play quickly, loudly. I felt that difference. It's a huge difference. Try it. And then if I went to the more chill gig the next night, adjusted to 45. Perfect. No closer than 45, but 45 is the sweet spot for the soft playing. A little beyond is the sweet spot for that volume and that power. So play around with those. Those do go hand in hand. Angle and spring tension kind of can create sort of the same sort of feelings of changes here on your pedal. But all in all, test out all of those things and be patient with this. Remember that a lot of this process involves you. I'll never forget being at a drum lesson back when I was in high school, and I was playing on a DW 5000 bass drum pedal. That's a nice pedal, right? It's a good, middle of the line, kind of like an SM57 microphone, like what I've got on my drums here. They're simple, they're high quality, just industry standard, DW 5000 pedal. And I was so frustrated by how I couldn't play quickly on that pedal. I was trying to play a jazz thing and going doom, 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 doom. Kind of a challenging exercise, and that pedal was just tripping me up. I could do it okay on this pedal back at home, but I'd show up to my lesson and I had a hard time playing it. And I think I might have even blamed the pedal in the lesson and told my teacher, like, I did this fine at home, but I can't do it on this pedal. And him, being wiser than I was, said, here's what I want you to do. This week, I want you to go practice this exercise really, really, really slow. Come back next week, let's see what happens. And so I went home and I practiced it really, really slow. It was something like this. Something kind of like that. And I was trying to get it to, I was trying to get it faster, but I had to take it really, really, really slow. And I came back to my lesson the next week and suddenly I could play it. And it didn't matter that that pedal hadn't felt good to my foot the week before. I could now play it because I had logged the practice. So I'm all about challenging your thinking here. And maybe your focus is on getting your pedal faster, and that's great. That's why I titled this video the way I titled it. I want you to get your pedal working as much for you as you can. Because if your pedal is working against you, that's not helpful. So let's get your pedal working for you. But let's also be honest with ourselves and admit that a huge part of this equation is us and how we're playing. Have we practiced? If you're spending more time tweaking your pedal than practicing, something's off kilter. That's not going to get you long-term results. And so let's get your pedal set up for success today. But I've got other lessons here on the channel to help you with foot strength. When I worked on my foot strength, suddenly it didn't matter the pedal. And that's what you're going to find. If you're a beginner, you're going to find one day, the more you play, that you can sit down at any pedal and make it happen. No, it might not feel ideal to you, but you'll be able to play just as loud and fast on any pedal, unless it's just completely wonky. But odds are you could go into a music store and where all the pedals are lined up on the rubber thing on the wall. You could go and sit down and play on any of those, and you're going to be able to play just fine because you've logged the practice. And that's ultimately the most important thing here. But hey, here's what should be happening. As you've made these adjustments, I'm excited for you because if you're a beginner, this means you're starting off on the right foot, pun intended, and you're getting your pedal working. You're gonna have a better feeling pedal, and even if you have a super cheap pedal, I've got some cheap ones over here that feel pretty good actually. Even if you've got a super cheap pedal, it's gonna be feeling much more high quality, especially if you oil it up, put some dry lube on there, get that pedal feeling good. You'll get more speed, so you'll be able to play more quickly. You'll feel more empowered and confident when your pedal's working for you. Even as you know your weaknesses and you know, okay, I've got to work on my strength, I got to practice. It's going to be more fun when your pedal is working for you. And also, here's another interesting thing. It'll be easier to bounce the beater instead of bury it. There are a lot of great drummers out there who bury the beater like this. That's how they play every note. And you may choose to play that way, but I think you get a better sound bouncing it. And when you're playing quickly, you're having to bounce it anyways, right? You can't bury when you're playing fast because it has to come right off. So why not be consistent and just bounce all the time? Better for your leg, better sound. You no longer have a shockwave going up your leg. And when you have your pedal adjusted well, it's that much easier to bounce instead of bury. So hey, question for you before you go. Measure the tempo of your pedal. If you didn't already do this with me earlier, how quickly does your bass drum beater bob back and forth? I want you to clock your tempo. And hey, share it in the comments. Let's talk about how fast or slow our pedals are. Mine does 8th notes at 105. This one, however, is significantly slower, but it all depends on, remember the length up here, and it depends on whether or not you have it attached to your drum. Make sure it's attached when you do the test. But hey, I hope this has been helpful to you. I know gear talk's a lot of fun. Let's just remember that gear is only part of it. We want the gear optimized for us, but we're going to put in the work to better ourselves to play that gear better so that we can get a great sound on the bass drum. Hope this has been valuable to you. Know that you can do this. As always, stay non-glamorous. I'll see you on the next lesson.